Hello guys, welcome to Top Anime Sensei. This video is the continuation video after the Violet Primordial. So if you have not watched it, then please watch it. The link is in the description. So without any further delay, let's start. But before we start, please like, subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. Huh, you're not up for it, then? She asked. Of course, who would be stupid enough to negotiate with demons? Stupid? Hey, are you referring to me? Idiot, is your skull too thick? Well then, you wanted to know the Empire's elite soldiers, learn that I'm one of them. Farage watched for Ultima's chance to speak as he thrust towards her. A professional stabbing technique. A deadly blow aimed at Ultima's heart, one that even Magians couldn't avoid. Except for, I will kill you last. Farage heard a voice coming from his back. Farage's deadly blow not only failed to touch Ultima, who was supposed to be sitting on the chair, but it also left a hole in the seat. As impossible as it may seem, Ultima had slipped behind him. He couldn't believe it. It's fine if you're not interested in a conversation, but you still have to answer my questions. Don't worry, you don't need to talk, I can get the answers on my own. Ultima looked around at the soldiers with an innocent smile. Then she began speaking in a hideous tone. Well, I will start with you. What? Farage turned around in panic when a round object whizzed past him. It slammed against the wall, leaving behind a big splotch, that thing being a human head. One of the lieutenants, who had just lost everything up above his neck, then collapsed to the floor, convulsing. What the? He didn't know anything, so I guess I'll keep going. While saying that, Ultima continued to randomly behead enemy soldiers, tampering with them for a few seconds before discarding them. As the number of victims increased, the airship transformed into a hell of screams and fear. Maximize the magic canceller's output. Contact the other ships and order them to shoot at this one. Farage shouted, snapping the panicked magicians back into reality. The soldiers hurriedly followed the order. Is that magic canceller one of your newest weapons? It seems like it works by shooting disruption rays that scatter the movement of magicules so that spells get cancelled. Sure, it works on monsters, but did you really think it'd work on me? Ultima muttered, tilting her head like a puppy. It's a bluff. Farage shouted, you think you can bluff your way out of this? You don't understand. If we were talking about a monster whose body is made up of magicules, it'd undoubtedly be super effective. But don't you think that you're just wasting your effort with incarnated demons like me? What? Besides, what's the point of using that against a higher being? As long as we're conscious, magic comes to us as naturally as you breathe. Observe. As soon as Ultima said that, her figure disappeared. At the same time, the head of the communications officer, sitting in the last row, shot into the air. It was done by Ultima, who moved there instantly. See, just now I moved and sent this guy's head flying. I went faster than sound, but there was no shockwave, right? It's because I used magic and... Ultima flicked her wrist and her fingertips seemed to blur for a moment. Immediately, the head of the second in command, standing next to Farage, burst with a bang. It's easy to create this kind of shockwave using the laws of physics, isn't it? Ultima spoke with an innocent tone while committing such atrocities. She didn't feel the slightest shred of guilt. How come? Farage muttered to himself. Ultima's words finally reached his mind. The common sense he had cultivated over the years got in the way of his understanding of the situation. It was a strange experience, as if she were speaking a foreign language from some faraway country. The truth was that he refused to understand it. Were archdemons really like that? Farage was still pondering Ultima's identity. She should have been on par with an archdemon. Had she been a newborn demon, he would have been able to defeat her handily. Although he couldn't defeat ancient species or even older beings, he could have put up a good fight, if not win, against a Viscount class or lower. So, what was this current situation? The magic canceller, that could even seal Veldora, turned out to be completely useless. The named archdemon, who called herself Ultima, was unusually strong, even when knowing she incarnated. Her power defied Farage's common sense. He realized that no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't beat Ultima. That's why he was willing to use his trump card against the demon. Don't get cocky, you demon. Spirit summoning, Ifrit. Greater fire spirit, come forth. This was the strongest summoning magic only available to heroes. Farage initially couldn't pull it off by himself, but the ship's magic-enhancing cannons and the presence of 50 mages made it possible. Additionally, spirits were barely affected by the magic canceller, so the summoning went unhindered. An Ifrit, a fire giant, manifested and destroyed the bridge on the spot. Spirits had a natural advantage against demons, so a greater spirit should be able to win against any archdemon. Farage was sure of himself and shouted at Ultima, I'll admit that you are a monster. However, we have been extensively researching demons, that's why we are fully prepared for this kind of situation. Too bad for you, now meet your doom. Ultima continued to smile as she listened to Farid's words. It was at this time Farid learned how frightening a smile could be. Impossible. It can't be. There is no way she can defeat Ifrit. The Ifrit summoned by Farid was powered up by 50 magicians through the magic-enhancing cannons. Naturally, its power was several times higher than the usual greater spirits. No matter the class of the demon, be it an ancient or prehistoric species, it couldn't be defeated by an archdemon. Even so, Farid still couldn't stop his nagging fear. Don't get so carried away by summoning a weak and useless thing. It would have been best for you to speak while I was still smiling. Now, I'll bring you despair. Ah, we're done for. It slowly dawned on Farid, he could feel it. And his intuition was right. The next moment, Ifrit, the embodiment of power, froze and shattered in front of Farid and his subordinates. It was caused by the elemental magic frozen hell that Ultima used without being noticed. Ah, what? It's a monster. What the hell? What the hell is that? Fools wept and wailed before the river of sorrow. They were all terrified. This was a natural reaction because before their eyes stood the very embodiment of death. Well then, let's resume the interrogation. Ultima's cheerful voice was the last thing heard by those unlucky souls. A few minutes later, Ultima nodded with a big smile on her face. She was happy to have gathered all the information she wanted. It should be impossible to steal all of someone's knowledge, but for Ultima it was a piece of cake to read people's brainwaves. Ultima was a military attaché, and bringing back information was part of her mission. If the results were satisfactory, her master, Rimuru, would be pleased. I would be happy with a compliment, Ultima thought. She then glanced at the sole survivor, Farid. He was the only one whom Ultima ignored during the massacre. Of course, it was on purpose. You called me a fool. This deserves the greatest fear. If you try hard enough, you will survive, so give it your best, Ultima whispered and began casting her magic. A fist-sized black fire started growing in Ultima's right palm. Farid knew this magic. It was an abyss core, an uncontrollable hellfire created after casting a specific chain of spells. The ultimate magic, said to lie beyond the grasp of human hands. Except that wasn't the whole story, because unbeknownst to Farid, some humans could control it. The heroes of humanity, the 7 luminary clerics, had achieved that feat with 3 of them working together. However, the abyss core produced by Ultima was an order of magnitude larger than the one produced by the 7 luminaries. Even Farid, who wasn't aware of this fact, could recognize it as a strategic threat. Ultima tossed it with a casual flick. Then, take care. Bye-bye, she said right before she left. Farid was stunned and stood up. The mystery over Ultima's identity no longer mattered to him anymore. He realized that the end of his life was in sight as soon as he laid eyes on the abyss core. He understood that he couldn't stop it. And that was true. Farid's powers were all meaningless. As if to ridicule his efforts, the fire that left Ultima's control expanded and spread everywhere. Shortly after Ultima took off, a black fireball swallowed the entire flagship and exploded, turning into the ultimate destruction magic, the nuclear flame. And Farid, the last man on board, could only whisper, "How beautiful, this is the pinnacle of magic." With an ecstatic expression on his face, his body burned, swallowed up by the black flame. His body was reduced to atoms and his soul experienced the pain of being burned alive. Master Gadra, have you ever experienced such a miracle? No, that's not possible, Farid asserted. He understood that the magic interference of the magic canceller was useless if dominated by stronger thought waves. As proof, this beautiful magic of destruction served him endless despair. His life ended in misery, but it was also by the blessing of being surrounded by the quintessence of magic. Farid's air assault division was completely obliterated by the nuclear flame. The superheated flames caused primary damage and were followed up with shockwaves from the explosion. The flagship was vaporized by the extreme heat. The ships in the vicinity were also blown to bits, turning their hulls into deadly shrapnel. The fragments tore through the air at hypersonic speeds, devastating the surrounding area. This enormous explosion sealed the Empire's fate. Only the first airship to fall to the ground remained intact. All others that remained in the air got caught up in the chain of explosions. Thus, the Empire's trump card, the Air Assault Division, was defeated in humiliating fashion, ending in complete annihilation, without ever engaging Veldora. Ultima lost interest in Farid as she took off from the flagship. Seeing the swelling fireball, she nodded in satisfaction. She remembered Rimuru's order to do her best, and wondered if she should have increased the power a little. but the realized that she would have killed all of the Hiryu members on the ground had she done that. So, in that regard, she figured she had done the right thing. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. And if you guys have not watched my other videos, then please watch them. The links are in the description. And don't forget to like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss the updates.